Hello, and thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of the Back to Formula podcast. Believe it or not, we did not stop there, despite that long-ass hiatus we had. I know that was a bit. Let's just say there was a good amount of stuff we had to sort out on our end, plus just being swamped with our regular daily responsibilities doesn't help either. With that being said, enough of the excuses. The slacking stops here, and we're going to go back to the full grind. As before, my name is Christian, and I'm here with my co-host, as he introduces himself.
I'm Jordan, and we're back in the full swing of shit. So we're ready to get this popping. And do want to apologize to our listeners. I know we probably don't have a whole lot, but when life starts kicking your ass full of responsibilities, kind of just have to step up to the plate. Nah, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff happened, but either way, I think it's safe to say that we're going to be pretty much on a better schedule now, so there should be some more consistent uploads here. And when it comes to this episode, as always, we like talking about movies, so that's not going to change. But we kind of decided to embrace Halloween that's coming up soon here and go over our picks for our favorite horror movies. So, of course, horror is going to be something that we both enjoy. Jordan's going to go over what he has here. I have a few picks that I have. And we're going to see. We actually haven't gone over each list with each other yet, so it's going to be a full discussion for the first time. And we'll see if we have any that overlap, any that we didn't think about or maybe haven't seen. So, yeah, I mean, do you think that there's going to be a bunch of overlap on your side, or what do you think?
Probably. So funny thing for the listeners to know before we dive into this, when we originally planned for this to happen, we just said horror. So as you guys know, there are certain movies in the sci-fi genre that could be considered horror as well. And when I originally drew up my list, we're doing 10 movies. We're just going to briefly touch on 5, or the first 5, and then go into detail on the last 5. But when I did my list, I drew up nothing but just straight horror movies. I didn't do any sci-fi films. And since, Christian over here decided to tell me last minute that, hey, I got sci-fi in my list, I had to change my fucking list. So it's going to be
It's kind
an
of funny when
interesting.
that was never clarified before. So we just found out a few minutes before recording.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting topic. In addition to it, I need to say this, but it's spooky season, and we need to get this off our chest. It's time to talk about some horror films. But yeah, we're gonna talk about our 10, and then we're gonna talk about 5. Not really in any particular order as far as ranking goes, but the last 5 will definitely be some reasoning behind it, some depth into detail about why we like them and so forth. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Christian take the floor on his number 10, I guess.
Yeah, well, we can go ahead and get started. And just before, kind of like how you said, I think this makes it a little bit easier to have us talk about different movies that we like and not have to be so set in stone, at least for the first 5. It's kind of difficult putting everything in a just rock solid order, and this is it from 10 all the way to 1. And not really necessary 100%, I don't think. So we'll get into more detail when we get to the closer to our top picks here.
Definitely way too much work. I don't know, too many fucking movies out. I don't have time to sit here and think about why I liked this one over this one and so forth and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I ain't got time for that shit. So we just gonna roll it this way.
You got to write like a thesis on each one, yeah.
Yeah, I ain't doing all that.
So, anyways, this is going to be horror movies that also can overlap and bridge into other genres as well. I just think it's kind of hard to really make a list for out of just pure horror. With that being said, the first one that I have here as my number 10 is actually a movie called The Descent. And Jordan, I know this is one that you've seen as well, right?
Yep, that was actually my my number 10 as well. So
Hey, look at that.
word to Magneto and Charles Xavier with their little head nod in the first film. Great minds think
Yeah,
alike. Um,
shit. And I swear, this is not something that we planned. We actually had
Definitely
not
not.
gone over that before, so that's kind of weird. But regardless, this movie is really fun to watch. It's probably one of the most fun horror movies that I remember seeing, especially for the first time. And you'll probably have similar feelings. It's not really, I guess people kind of call this one a genre movie, and as into, I don't want to say there's not much to it, but it pretty much just has a big pull to it, and that's kind of the, I like to think it's the closed off atmosphere that the movie gives you, and you feel kind of claustrophobic. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. I think it is the claustrophobia aspect behind it, and it being so dark. That's why people don't really. That's the reason why people give it so much praise. But we should tell at least the audience what it's about. And basically, it's a woman who suffers a really bad tragic accident. She loses her family, and then she goes on a hiking trip with her girlfriends. Probably like I want to say like a group of 6, 7, or 8 of them, I think.
Yeah.
And basically, they go to this area that's really never been hiked before, And as time goes on and they're hiking deeper and deeper, it's very shut off from the rest of the world. It's nothing but darkness. And then they find out that they're not alone in the caves. Won't spoil it. Never really go into much detail other than that. But it's a very, kind of just makes you think about like what's really out there in the world. Because this is not even set in the United States. It's set somewhere in Europe. Um,
Exactly, right.
and like, I mean, you kind of think about this stuff in the United States, but I know like there's so many different like mountains and stuff in Europe. So you kind of think like, damn, like what if there really is some shit out there that's like this, you know?
Makes you think
Um,
about, the unexplored, if there's, some kind of weird possibility of something like that happening. And it's interesting because, not trying to spoil anything either, I don't think there's much to spoil when it comes to
I
this.
mean, to be honest, it's a 14-year-old movie, so I'm sorry,
Yeah,
guys. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it and thank us
it's worth
later.
your time.
It definitely is.
Yeah, I'd say it's worth your time. And yeah, go ahead if you want to give the synopsis there for, I guess, what's the peril.
I mean, basically, it's very gory. They come across these creatures who haven't seen daylight in probably hundreds of years. Like they all breed in that cave, and they evolve pretty much evolved to the point where their hearing is very very sensitive. So they can hear breathing, they can hear footsteps, they can hear drops of water in the cave, and that's pretty much how they go off by hunting. They have fangs, they have strength to rip things to shreds, and that's pretty much what the whole movie's about. They're trying to escape, and they're trying to get back into the world and see some daylight. It's
Even
fucked.
logistically with these things, just kind of how the system works with how they live. They're kind of underground predators, and they inhabit these crevices in the cave itself. So it completely works as to how do these kinds of creatures survive, and how do they do their job of staying alive and staying hidden at the same time. And it turns out they have a taste for human flesh. So these guys who end up going down there, kind of the title, The Descent, are finding this out for the first time, and they pretty much end up being fucked. And the movie is them trying to get out alive while they're being torn to shreds by these creatures. And
And
I mean,
they're
at
the
face value,
hunted.
that's what it is. They're the
They're
hunted, yeah.
they're being hunted the entire time. So it's just it's a roller coaster, man. I remember just watching that movie for the first time. There before we do move on to our number nine. Um, there is a second movie, but I consider that to be what's the word again? Non-canon.
Non-canon. Okay,
I
you don't really
I don't
consider it part.
I don't really consider that part of the initial story because number one, I liked how the first movie ended, and number two, I think it was just a reach for a story, in my opinion. But
I think it was too. I actually, I didn't want to tread over the same ground here, but I also was not the big fan of part two. I mean, and I think it wasn't the fact that it was made. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the first one was fine. You didn't have to continue it." I mean, that's part of the reason too. I just didn't think it took the material in anywhere that kind of excelled, like in any place. Like the first one had the whole structure that made it work as a just an enclosed, fast-paced, action, gory survival movie with these things tearing at you. And the second part, it kind of goes. I think it tries to be bigger than it actually is, and then try to do like a 360 with her going back and doing the same kind of things in the first one, and it just wasn't
mm,
needed. It wasn't as
I
good.
feel like they try to retcon certain shit that happened in the first movie too, without really like
Yeah,
stepping all over it. But that's just my opinion. I'm glad we agree on that both. But I guess it's now time to go to number nine, right?
go ahead.
All right. Well, mine. So yeah, you did start the last one. My number nine is going to be It chapters one and two. I'm not gonna separate them. I'm just gonna go ahead and loop it together in one franchise. Um, it basically about a clown that terrorizes these group of children. What in the early '80s, mid '80s, I guess.
Yeah.
And basically, this clown can manifest into whatever it is that these children fear, and they in the first chapter they kill it or they send it away, and 30 years later it comes back into their lives and they have to kill it as adults. The remakes are great. I will say that I did see chapter one of the original, but I did
Yeah.
not see chapter two of the original, so I should watch it. But in comparison, I think the original is kind of weak compared to the remake. I think the remake had more of a realistic kind of feel to it as to how something like this would impact people. It's not even a fucking clown; it's a fucking alien from that crashed here thousands of years ago that just decided to manifest a clown. And I think the fact that it's an alien is what makes it even scarier. Not even the fact that it's just this random entity
Even
or
more
anything
the
like that.
unknown.
Right. It's more of a fucking alien than anything. What and then so yeah, that's my number nine. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that you brought up the miniseries. I was wondering if you were gonna bring that up as a comparison because I have seen both parts of the miniseries, and even though I'd say I kind of hold a soft spot for them in my heart a little bit because I saw them when I was really young. There was like a big craze for it for some reason when I was in elementary school, talking about how it's like super scary, though the clown's fucking terrifying, and it did creep me out because I was little. But looking back now as an adult, especially now having these as a perspective when it comes to the remakes versus the originals, they're just better quality, kind of objectively. I think at this point, the miniseries is was made for very cheap, and there's a lot of parts in the movie that suffer when it comes to the acting. I like Tim Curry as Pennywise, but man, the remake, especially the first part, I think it's just a really well made movie all the way around. I was surprised how much not just the story, the way that the kids are affected by each of their fears. You actually, it's made very believable. Like you kind of understand why they would be traumatized, and it affects them in their daily lives as opposed to just running around from a clown the whole movie. Because it could have just been like a slasher with like no meaning at all. You know what I mean?
Right. No, 100%. And, does not to disrespect Tim Curry either. Like, he did a great performance, but Bill Skarsgård was just way over the top. He had the creepy eye to go with it. Um,
He can do
and you are
that quiver with his lip too. That
Quiver
weird
with the
shit that he
lip
does.
too, the weird drool that he's got. So it's just little things like that I really enjoy that actors do to characters that just make me appreciate it way more. I know we're not gonna, go off on a tangent here, but looking at, Joker, Heath Ledger, the random lip smacks from Heath Ledger, the weird little movements, the random fucking inflections of his voice. Like that's the kind of
Right.
random
Yeah.
small things that I can appreciate that an actor does to a character that just makes it a hell of a lot better.
Well, it's like all the miniature things, all the tiniest things will add up. I think when it comes to something like that. So
Oh, I agree.
um, it's it works. And again, we're not going to go on too far of a tangent. I must say, I think part one is superior to part two when it comes to the remakes. Part two was good. I do think some parts were a little disappointing when it comes to how effective I thought the first one was. But that's just me. Did you think that, or did you like it just as much as the first?
I think I like part two a little bit more than part one, but that's only because people
More.
actually died. Um, I mean, if you go back and you
Yeah,
look at part one, nobody really died except for Georgie, and everybody else is pretty much just what's the word I'm looking for?
one of the bullies.
Well, no, well, yeah, he died too, but that was it. Like nobody barely died in the first movie. Like the second movie was like the end; it was the conclusion, so that's why I like it a little bit more. What was your number nine? Was that your number nine too?
Actually, no, it was not. I did not have it on there. My number nine was Sinister, and this is one that you actually introduced me to. I heard of it for a long time, but I never actually decided to sit down and watch it until you told me to. And Sinister gave me something that I did not have in horror movies, I feel like, for a long time. Because I think around the time that I watched Sinister, it was like 2016 or 17, maybe even later, maybe even later. And I just remember for the longest time, the big recent things that were coming out was Jump Scare Central movies. That was the big thing because it turned screenings into like a fun theater event where everybody goes and gets startled by a big pop up on the screen. And to me, that's just not really scary. It's not. I'm not even unsettling. It's startling. But Sinister, it's just kind of like the name implies. It focuses on fear itself, dread, um, kind of feeling powerless to stuff that's going on around you, and it's a few different ways that you can kind of describe what the threat is. But if you want to give a synopsis on this one, because I know you enjoy Sinister too.
So I'm gonna be honest with you, Chief. Sinister was my number four, but that's okay because I
All right.
really because I really love Sinister. Like you just said, I put you onto it.
Mhm.
Um, basically, it's Ethan Hawke. He is a what's the word, a forensics writer or whatever, I guess you can say.
He's like a true crime
Yeah,
like novelist writer
yeah,
something
he's
like
he's
that.
like a forensics true crime novelist, and basically, he moves from state to state, investigating different things, and then he gets the attention caught of this one house, of pretty much a similar cases where a group of a whole family, at least a family of four, or I'm sorry, a
Mm.
family of five, four of them will die, but then one child always goes missing. So he pretty much moves into a house where one of these happenings occurred, and basically he's just trying the entire movie to figure out or unravel why it is that these things are happening and where's the missing children, like where are they going. And then he pretty much just bites off more than he can chew. He's thinking that it's pretty much going to be this thing that he can easily solve, and you know get enough details about, and it just, like you said, it becomes something way more evil than he had intended. You know, the great thing about that movie is that he's so confident. Like at the very beginning of the movie, he's very confident he can find out exactly what the hell is going on. But towards the end of the movie, he gets so spooked, and he's like, "We need to leave." Like he's like, "We're done.
Yeah,
Like I gotta, like we gotta
exactly.
go." Like he realized it was beyond him at that point.
And that's kind of where you start realizing that once he starts to notice that he's feeling that way and he's in over his head, it just starts shifting into a completely different feel. And him as a character is a lot different from how the movie starts. And if I remember right, he had a lot of success with like earlier books he was writing, but then he started like teetering off, right, where like
Yep.
his later books weren't doing that good or
He pretty
something.
much had his 15 minutes of fame, and then he was pretty much just trying to reignite that publicity again. And his wife was always telling him, "Hey, what if you already had your 15 minutes? It's okay. Like you don't need to worry about it." And he was just trying his hardest to get it, and it cost him his family at the end, which sucks, you know. But the main thing in the movie is this guy named Bagul, and he's pretty much the children eater. And what happens is that he follows these families, and I remember at the end of the movie where Vincent D'Onofrio calls him. He's like, "Hey man, did you move?" Like he's like, "You didn't move, did you?" He's like, "Yeah, of course I moved." He's like, "You just sped up the timeline." I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like he's dead.
Damn.
Like that's it.
He's fucked at that point. You just kind of realize you're just like, yeah, that's it, right? And it just makes you feel some sort of way because you start thinking about it, and it's kind of weird at first because he has this mentality of moving into this house because he wants to get in the feel of finding out what happened here, unravel the case. And he starts getting feedback from like his family and stuff because they go through a bunch of moves and shit, and he's kind of putting them through a lot every time he does it. But he really just wants to reignite his fame, and because of that, it pretty much ends up costing him everything. And it's a really interesting watch. And I mean, there's not really a whole bunch more else to say that I can about it, but it's
Yeah,
definitely
there's that
just well
much,
made and worth your time if you
and
haven't
that's
seen
why
it.
it's my number four. I mean, once we get to our top five, I'm not gonna go into much detail about it, but that's why I love the movie. Like, it's just such a well written movie. It had an original plot. Like, it's the shit, and I fucks with it
And you
heavy.
saw that one in theaters, right?
I did. Yeah, a very long time ago. Um, I will say Sinister 2, trash. Definitely not as good as the first.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
no,
subpar, mediocre. Not the same impact that the first one gave me. But moving on. That was your number nine, right?
right. So go to yours.
So my number well, it was my number nine. So now it's my number eight.
Oh, hey,
So probably gonna laugh at this, but Jeepers is my number eight.
I
Um,
had a feeling you would.
yeah, Jeepers is gonna be on my list, man. So I'm pretty sure all of our listeners know about Jeepers Creepers, but and this is one and two. I think I prefer
Okay.
number one over two, but
See, and I'm more of a number two guy. But anyways, go
you're
ahead.
more of a two guy. Okay. Well, basically,
Yeah,
Jeepers Creepers, as I'm sure everybody knows about this random guy called the Creeper, and he pretty much preys on people's fear and takes their body parts and uses them for his, and he goes into this sleep or this hibernation every well, he pretty much comes out of a hibernation cycle every 27 years, and then he pretty much goes out and terrorizes people every, like, I think he does it for like what, 2 to 3 weeks at a time, I think, and then he goes back to
yeah,
sleep.
I think so.
So that's pretty much what the movie's about. The first one came out back in 2003. I remember watching this movie with my mom like years ago, and I actually the first like that movie actually like horrified me. I'm not gonna lie. Watching it,
Really?
yeah, watching it older, it's actually really fucking
Mhm.
funny. Like just some of the shit that he does, like I don't know, especially like in the second movie, it's like a lot funnier than I
Yeah,
intended or anticipated it as a child. But that movie kind of like
yeah.
horrified me as a kid, just probably because I couldn't really like
Damn.
process what was going on, but like the whole concept of it was just scary to me. Um,
Like his design, just on top of that too. Like I'll let you finish, but I gotta say, at least from just like a design standpoint, I thought that was pretty great for his the way his creature is.
no, I agree. He's got the big ass scary truck, the cathedral full of bodies. Overall, he's just a dope ass concept as a horror character. I will say probably the scariest part to me in the first movie is when they drive by him dumping that body down the well, and like he doesn't even flinch or move. He just stares at him the entire time. Like I
See,
would
like
be,
you're describing it now, and that part just makes me laugh. But I could totally see, you as like a little kid or younger, and then just being like, Jesus Christ.
dude. That shakes me now. Like obviously, again, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it, but like just imagine driving
Yeah,
down the road, right, and you see the guy who's harassing you maybe 5 or 10 minutes prior, and you see him just dump this fucking body in a bloody sheet down a well. And he sees you looking at him, but he doesn't even flinch. Like he just keeps staring at you as you drive by. Like wouldn't that just like leave you feeling uneasy?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely would. It has good elements in there. When it comes to those movies, I liked them a lot, especially when I was a kid. Looking at them now,
They're silly.
uh, they're a little silly. I was just gonna say the first one I think is a little goofy, even the second one a little bit. But I think a lot of it actually has some intentional humor more than I thought the first time watching it. And I kind of think that where the movies excel, the concept of the creeper at first, that's one. I think the concept of the creeper is very interesting. It reminds me of the whole time cycle thing. Kind of reminds me of like Pennywise,
Yeah.
where he'll like come out only a certain amount of years and feed and then rest again and stuff like that. Um, that's kind of cool. I like it when these kinds of creatures have some kind of system or tradition that they follow. Just because it kind of makes them seem like they're more settled in, and it makes it even more difficult to survive something like that.
Or even
And
makes
then
it even more
two,
difficult
I
to
think
kill them too. Like, as if they hibernate every 27 years, and it's like, fuck. Well, I don't have to worry about this for
you're
27
screwed if you don't
years,
get them
but
when they come out. Yeah.
exactly. And then you're kind of stuck with psychological trauma of fuck. Like, now I got 25 years. Now I got 24 or 23. You know, it's like a doomsday clock with these things.
Yeah, and then the second reason why I think it works out is because of the many different ways that he can get to you. Especially with like part two, I vividly remember the first time watching. It's just like you don't know where he could come through. He could grab you through a window. I know he like jumps down in the hole in the bus and like gets this dude and swipes him up with his wings.
Oh yeah,
He could throw shit at you and like pin you to a wall.
ridiculous
It's
strength.
kind of like
Yeah,
yeah. So there's just like a multitude of ways that you can get fucked, and that's part of the other reason why I think I enjoyed him growing up as a kid. And if you have anything else to say, let me know. But I also would like to know your thoughts about three really quick because I know
fuck
you
it.
saw that
No,
one.
no, I ain't even gonna talk about it. It's trash. I don't even want to think about it.
Okay, made for TVs, like financed by Sci-Fi, Jeepers Creepers
I
3.
mean, it doesn't help
Shit
that the
got a
fucking
theatrical
director
release.
is a fucking kitty toucher, but you know, that's another can of
Yeah,
worms for another time. What's your number eight?
yeah. So moving on up, or yeah, it's my next pick here. This one is actually one that you may have not seen, or if you have it, I've seen that it's been thrown on Netflix a couple times before. But it's this French horror movie made in 2007 called Inside. Or I guess
Inside.
in French pronounced a l'intérieur, but inside, yeah. Have you heard of that one at all?
I don't think I have. I think I've seen it on Netflix, but I haven't
It's
like.
been on there, yeah.
When I'm reading the synopsis, concerns the attack and home invasion of a young pregnant woman by a mysterious stranger who seeks to take. Ooh, that does sound scary.
Yeah, this was one that I saw. I think what was in high school when I ended up seeing it for the first time. So my parents ended up throwing this on. My dad found it. I don't know how he found it, but this one did kind of get to me. I wouldn't really say horror. It was more of in a shocking way because what happens here is this is a movie kind of like how you summed it up there. What happens is there's this lady who had her husband that died 4 months ago to when the movie starts, and she's actually pregnant with his baby. And what ends up happening is she gets help from this lady in her house to take care of like some chores, help her there by living there, bringing in some income to kind of help support the fact that she doesn't have a husband anymore. And at first it's kind of her thinking about how cool this lady is for helping her out. Everything's working out, and when she starts to wonder why she decided to kind of take this job, and she was so eager and gung ho about it. You find out that that lady actually wants the baby for a multitude of reasons, and very quickly, actually, it's surprising how fast it gets into it. But the rest of the movie, man, it's just an extreme, violent, gory ass movie where it's just crazy shit that she's trying to get through while surviving. And there's a lot of really cool practical effects with people getting just fucking messed up and massacred in different ways over this like small plot. And it's just a very extreme movie. I know there's not much you can say because you haven't seen it, but I would recommend it,
Oh,
dude,
that sounds
because
awesome.
it's a pretty crazy watch. Yeah, it's a cool watch. So that one more shocked me because we were watching, and I remember me and my dad were having fun, but my mom had to leave the room because she kind of gets
I
grossed
can
out
see
by
your
stuff
mom.
like
I can
that.
see your
So
mom
she
doing
didn't.
that.
Yeah, she didn't like it at all. She's like, I can't watch this. She just left.
So I
But
see.
crazy,
Speaking
crazy.
speaking of you saying it's very fast paced, it says it's an hour and 28 minutes or 22
Yeah, it's a
minutes.
short movie
Yeah, it's very short.
because if it's just that concept, I'm not really leaving too much out. This is just this whole thing playing out really quick, and by the time shit starts popping off, you're just pretty much following the girl the whole time, trying to find a way to not get her baby cut out of her. But yeah, one day either there's also an American remake that was actually made in 2016. They put it on Hulu. That shit was so ass, man. I threw it on one day while I was home because I'm like, oh, a remake of Inside, let's watch. And just like a lot of other American remakes from horror movies that are foreign, it sucked, man. And it wasn't even gory. It was like basically PG-13 version of it, and I kind of hated it. But yeah, that's it.
Sounds like hot garbage. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
take your word on it. I'll try to peep it when I can. Now time to go on to number 7. It's gonna be Midsummer for me. Um, so
A
this is a Ari Aster film. I'm gonna pretty much call him as the guru of horror starting now. Woman,
the Messiah.
the Messiah. Waiting for your modern Messiah. I'm just kidding.
To bring me good horror movies.
What do you guys know about that Disturbed? Anyway, that's that Disturbed Believe back in 2000. When the album come out? 2002. That's some of their best shit.
I thought it was three. Maybe it's two.
I think it's 2002 because they came out with The Sickness in 2000. Anyway, we're on a tangent. Uh, so Midsummer is about this woman who suffers a tragic loss, and basically, well, but actually, before I go into this, I want to say that for anybody who knows me in real life, like close friends, family members, and stuff like that, they know that cults scare the absolute dog shit out of me. Like, there's not a lot of things that scare
You
me.
do have a very designated fear just towards them. I've
Oh,
noticed that. Yeah.
dude, oh my god. There's not a lot of things that scare me in life. Like, there's like, there's like certain individuals that scare me, and there's certain animals that scare me, but cults, man, there's just something about cults that just make my skin crawl. Like, the fact that a group of people can just be so swindled by one person. And it's not even the fact that these group of people are just like different individuals. They're all weak-minded individuals that fall under the same pretenses. And if you say the right things,
Yeah.
they will do any and everything you tell them to. And it's fucking scary. It is not something that I would ever, ever want to be around. But anyway, basically, this movie is about a woman who suffers a tragic loss. Her boyfriend is going to be going to this place in Sweden where they practice a midsummer ritual, and basically, it's a cult. But it's a very like lovey-dovey cult. It's not a traditional cult that you're used to seeing. Like, oh, don't drink the Kool-Aid cult. It's one of those weird cults that come off very nice at first, and then as the
Very welcoming.
very welcoming, very
Open.
loving,
Yeah.
and then like as time goes on, you kind of figure out like what the fuck, wait, what the fuck, like what's going on? Um, I don't want to spoil this movie because it's very new, like it barely just came out this year, but it's one of those movies that it's not even really horror for me. It was more on the disturbing factor. A lot of the stuff in this movie was very disturbing to me. Disturbing in the sense of like it just made you uncomfortable, like you said, Christian, when we were talking about it. You're kind of like a fly on the wall while you're watching this movie, and a lot of the stuff that happens makes you feel very uneasy.
It's that feeling that it gives you when I wouldn't even call it scared. It's just kind of like you said, disturbing, and maybe that aligns to other people with being scared. But I think it's a different feeling, and not to downgrade it or anything at all. Sometimes that's what I'm looking for because I feel like I don't get either with some horror movies these
Mm-hmm.
days. And with Midsummer, even though I did like Ari Aster's first run there with Hereditary more, um, this movie left an impression on me. Like I did think about it for a long time. I had to watch it again the same day with my wife just to get a second view in and see if I kind of missed anything there or feel differently. But it's really weird because it starts off, and I think the opening is terrific, dude. Like it grabs you right away with the terrible event. I don't want to say what it is because this one is kind of newer,
Mm-hmm.
but let's just say though it's not. If you just tell someone what happens, it's just like, oh, okay. But when you actually experience it and see it play out, just the way that it's done, dude, it's so genuine, and it makes you feel terrible because the way they're acting and the way it's kind of like presented, it's not like another horror movie would do it. It kind of feels like you're looking in through someone's window who's dealing with that, and it doesn't feel good. Like you don't want to see that just the reaction. So that alone kind of grabbed me. And then when they're going into the whole the Midsummer Festival or whatever the hell it is, and everything starts going on, obviously you kind of have an idea of what might happen here, especially if you've seen other similar movies with the same kind of themes, like The Wicker Man and things like that. But there's some sinister stuff that's brewing in the background, and it's not always in your face. It's very subtle, and sometimes you pick up on smaller things that you think about, and it just creeps you out because you start wondering about what the hell might be going on off screen that's being hidden by this facade of nice, welcoming, loving people. And I can see what you mean by that creeping you out because it's not even people that are being forced to by like a manipulator. These are people who are like open and willing to believe 100% with their soul that what they're doing is fine or it's for the good. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, that's exactly what scares the shit out of me about it. So yeah, you'll never catch me near a fucking cult ever. In regards to the acting, Florence Pugh, outstanding performance. Again, that tragedy at the beginning of the movie knocked it out of the park. I will say that Ari Aster
Yeah, dude,
knows how to
absolutely
he
great.
knows how to cast his female leads. I'll say that. But moving on,
I would just say he knows how to cast in general. I don't think there. I know we're moving on, but I don't think there's one bad performance in that movie.
I don't think so either. Like the acting was great. Like none of it made me cringe. None of it was like, "The fuck is this?" Like it was good. This is genuinely, it's good. It's good writing overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, good shit. All right then. Well, with that being said, going into my next pick here. This is for number 7. I I'm wondering what if you'll disagree that this should be on a list or not, but I actually went with 2007 Stephen King's The Mist. And I know that's kind of considered more of thriller than horror, but I would still
Okay.
say that it has enough horror elements in there to kind of go in the category, I think. And this is Stephen King always has great stories, but I actually think this is one of the ones that, even from the beginning, was one of my favorites. And just to kind of give a brief description of this one here, there's this character named David Drayton, and him and his young son they head
David
into town
Draymond
to
from Disturbed. I'm just kidding.
fuck.
Ah!
Yeah, so David Drayton and his son they start heading into town because they're looking to gather some supplies, food, shit like that, and they end up going into this store. And afterwards, there's a big thick ass fog starts rolling into the town and pretty much covers
Not
the
a
whole
fog,
town.
jackass. A fucking mist. We were talking about
It's
the
fucking
mist.
fog.
Called a fog. The hell is this?
Fuck up. Jesus Christ.
All right, go
It's
ahead.
fucking fog. All
It's
right,
fucking
anyways.
mist. Anyway, it's called the mist. You're talking about
Yeah,
the mist, not the fog.
it's fucking same shit, dude. It's not fucking evaporated water. Chill. All right, anyways. All right, anyways. So they end up getting trapped in this grocery store. And pretty much because of that, there's fucking terrible creatures and different kinds of entities that start rolling in. And they start realizing that it's just getting worse as the time goes. So it turns into a survival movie, them trying to get through. People are getting messed up. And after all this is said and done, has one of the best endings that throw you off that I've seen in one of these movies like this. But kind of going over just that brief description, I love this movie. I actually watch it pretty regularly, at least like once a year, just because I think it's dope. And I think that it's part of one of the movies that my man, fucking, hold on, why am I drawing a blank here? Oh, shit. Yeah, Thomas Jane. I couldn't think of his name. It's the one where Thomas Jane actually gets some recognition as a good ass actor he is, because I think a lot of people don't know that, and unfortunately, he hasn't really caught like his wind of like these good ass movies like back to back to back. But
Hey man, he's
this is
in
one
Deep
of
Blue Sea too, man.
True. Deep Blue Sea was good, but I just think that he could be in so much better mainstream stuff, even though he's older now and they're only putting him as side characters and
He's
Predator
definitely
and
missed
shit.
his mark. Like his mark was early 2000s up to about maybe 2010, 2015, and yeah, I mean
Yeah, like I'm
he
surprised
played
Punisher didn't catch him.
he's played in other movies like Stander. Like that was a movie that where he was like a gangster or something like that. I never watched it. Um,
Hmm.
but back to the topic of conversation. No, I can respect the Mist being on here. I totally forgot that that movie was considered a horror. Um, if you read the book is the complete opposite of what happens at the end of the movie.
I heard that. I don't know what
Instead of that
happened, but
tragic,
yeah,
yeah. So instead of that tragic ending that happens in the movie, it's basically just him writing from a place that they're posted up at, hoping that the mist will eventually just die out, and that's how the book ends. And I can I kind of like that ending a little bit more. I don't know, probably because I'm a father myself. So it just
yeah, dude,
pained
you
me
you
to
hate
do something like
ever
that.
since you're a dad, you just hate stuff like that. But I
It would
get it. I
pain
get
me
it.
to
I
do
just
something like that. But as a father myself, I can understand why he did it. Like you would
yeah,
rather your child suffer from something like, or I'm sorry, not even feel that versus getting
like
devoured by a
painless death.
fucking,
Yeah,
yeah, getting devoured by a fucking monster. But that's the thing that I like about the Mist too, is that it's fearing the unknown. Like you don't know what the fuck is out there. And the thing is like you see like what happens to the Shermanator, the same guy that plays Shermanator in American Pie. Dude gets devoured by a fucking octopus with spikes. And then like
yeah,
later on in the movie
like
when they're
Jesus.
leaving, yeah, and then later on in the movie when they're leaving the supermarket, there's these giant, gargantuan, almost Godzilla-sized fucking creatures walking around. So to me, it's like that aspect of the movie that just makes it like way scarier because you don't know what the fuck is out there. You don't even know what it looks like. It's just a numerous things just sitting out there. And the thing is too that I liked about it is that it came from another dimension. Like they theorized that it's the military up in the mountains fucking around with some portals, and all of a sudden some shit came into our dimension, and that's what caused it. And I like
Just
that a lot.
unleashed them.
Mhm. In addition to that, before you say your part, I was just gonna say another cult aspect. Mrs. Carmody, cult background, talking about his Jesus and everybody's gonna die and this and that, and the whole store turned with her. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cults,
And
man.
it's got everybody's frantic. So especially in that kind of state of mind, it could be easy to fall into something like that. So
Exactly,
yeah, it goes
dude.
back
That's
to
what I'm
your
saying.
cults.
Cults, fucking
Everything leads
scary
back
as
to your
shit for a
cults.
reason to me, man. I feel like you were gonna say something else about it.
No, I mean, this is again not one that it's too complicated, so I think that kind of sums it up generally. But I just think it's funny that this is one that I throw on every now and then, like I said. But whenever my wife Selena comes in, she doesn't want to watch it. Like she'll find something else to do or like go somewhere else because she just hates the ending, so she like doesn't want to watch it. But
Yeah.
it's a tragic. It's a tragic, but it's like a punch in the face. But it's like such a good ending to this adaptation of a story. I feel,
No, I
but
agree.
maybe the one in the book, because maybe stuff plays out differently too. That probably is a better ending for that one too. But this one, I think the liberty that they took was for the better. And now with that one, that's actually all I had to say for that one. So we'll go ahead and move on to your number 7 or 6. Your
Yeah,
number
number
six.
six. Mine is gonna be another Ari Aster movie. It's gonna be Hereditary.
In a way,
All
everything
right,
I think.
so
But
for our listeners, spoiler alert. We're just gonna dive into it.
okay,
So sorry.
yeah, we can. We're sorry. We tried.
So basically,
Okay, Jared, go ahead.
her mom dies. Like you said, she's in distress the entire next 15, 20 minutes of the movie. Then you have her son who is trying to have a social life and do things that any other high schooler would do. Then she has a very weird and awkward 12-year-old who does very weird and awkward, quirky things. And it
Yeah,
all starts with
there's something
this.
up there.
Yeah, start and pretty much the end of the movie explains why. But anyway, um, pretty much what ends up happening is that she forced the son goes to a party, and then the mom forces the daughter to go to the party with him. The girl takes a bite out of something at the party that she unknowingly knew that had peanuts in it, and so she basically is developing. I forgot the technical term for um,
Very bad allergic reaction.
really, yeah, very bad allergic reaction. But basically, he is in the process of trying to get her home. She can't breathe. She's trying to get air, and then he swerves, and then pretty much she ends up getting decapitated
She sticks her
by.
head out the window. She's trying to breathe.
Yeah, she can't breathe, so she sticks her head out the window. He swerves, and she ends up getting decapitated
By like a
um, by a pole. Right. So he literally just drives home, crawls in his bed, and then you hear Tony Collette pretty much again. Ari Aster, I commend you for this for having another great
man,
performance.
just
But
painfully real, genuine, just fuck,
like just
I can't even describe it.
out of the ballpark acting, but pretty much finds her headless body in the back. And she's pretty much just dealing with this for the entire rest of the movie. But as the movie goes on, there's very odd things that start to occur and happen around the house. Like she starts seeing these weird visions, but the son starts seeing weird shit, and weird shit starts popping up on him. Um, then the father gets a call saying that that her mother's grave was robbed and her body's gone. And you're like, okay, like
Yeah.
why is all this weird shit happening? And then all of a sudden, Tony Collette meets this woman who, again, it's more cult shit that disturbs the fuck out of me. But basically, meets this woman who is a grievance counselor. She gets close to her. She tells her that she can speak to her daughter by doing certain things that ghosts do. And then after that, even more weird and twisted shit happens in the movie. And pretty much you get to the end of the movie. And I know we're kind of pretty much like going over it, but oh well. But pretty much you get to the end of the movie and you find out that her mother was into pagan rituals with a cult and basically what was it put the demon into her granddaughter, the one who had died,
Yeah.
and
Right.
basically because she had died the demon had really nowhere to go, so they pretty much did some freaky shit at the end of the movie to make it go into the sun, and that's pretty much how the movie ends. um, I know I pretty much just kind of went over the whole film and what happens. It was just very general. I try to generalize as much as I could, but what's your take on it?
Yeah. And you pretty much have to take our word that this description does little, if not any, justice to the actual execution of the movie itself, because I think that's kind of where the movie exceeds. It's in the presentation. And what I mean by that is everything that's shown to you is 100% top notch. Like I don't feel like there's any expense that was spared when I'm watching what's on the screen because Toni Collette gives her fucking performance of a lifetime. I think she's awesome in the movie. She's fantastic at being disturbed, at being borderline psychotic, trying to be rational but not knowing how to under all this pressure and distress that she's going through. It's weird, man. It's insane. Like it's almost like you're peeking into again the house of someone else's fucking Ari Aster. It's just it's painfully real, and I think that's what grabbed me so much about it. Because this movie is a lot about like dealing with dread. I think when you kind of think about like the themes, how this whole situation plays out, there's a lot of dread and sadness in this movie, and trying to deal with grief, and that just makes you feel uneasy the whole way through. And then when you see terrible things happen, it's not just like terrible things that are shocking because of the gore factor. Like there are movies that will do that and it just be like, oh man, that was so gory and messed up and that was so crazy to see. Like it was kind of funny. But no, this is something where it's very grounded because, for example, the first part that you mentioned where um, she starts getting sick, he's rushing her because she's having an allergy
Oh,
attack or whatever the hell it's called.
complete 180. Like you don't even fucking see it happening.
So when you don't expect really anything to happen out of this, if anything, you're like, oh man, she's gonna die because she's going through this crazy attack, and then all of a sudden there's this big swerve, and it had like happens so fast, probably as it would happen in real life, that by the time your brain connects what was actually happening in that scene, you're kind of having the same reaction as the son when he's driving, and his reaction is like it's something that's so like non-movie like you don't even see the aftermath really that much of the decapitation. He kind of shies away from that to show the reaction, and this kid is frozen. He doesn't even want to look back. He doesn't even want to like think about what he's done because he's just in shock, and you just see him like trying to start to process this shit, and I'm like, this type of shit I fuck with, you know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. Like if this is one of
It's good.
those like
Good stuff like that.
generic horror movies, he would have screamed, but he didn't. Like
Oh
he
yeah, he
literally
would be like,
just
ah!
drove home, climbed into bed, and didn't go to sleep.
He just couldn't process anything, right? So the only thing he could do is just go home and leave her headless body in the back. And as fucked up as it sounds, is it just adds to the disturbing factor. And we could pretty much, I feel like if we had to, we could make a whole episode
We
discussing
probably
why
could.
Hereditary
We
is,
probably we probably
so,
could. So we're gonna shut the fuck up about it now. And
yeah. But take our word, it's good.
did you go over your number 6 yet? It's your turn, right?
Yeah, it's my turn. Let me pull it up here. Okay, now we're going to go over my number 6. This is actually going to be another foreign movie. Okay, so this is a 2010 Korean movie. As my pick for number 6 is actually one called I Saw the Devil. This is one I heard about through a disturbing movie review personality on YouTube, but I have seen that this movie has been on Hulu a couple times. I'm wondering if you ever heard of it. I Saw the Devil.
Um, I may have heard about it. I'm looking up the synopsis of it right now. I'm not gonna interrupt you, but
Yeah, so if you want to look through that, pretty much when it comes to this one is I Saw the Devil is there is a serial killer who's going around this Korean town, and what he normally does is he has his own chamber that he has set up. So he'll find women who are alone, pretend that he's a taxi driver to lure them in. He'll find people that look like they're needing a ride home. If he's able to lure them into the car, he'll try to befriend him, get them to put their guard down. As soon as that happens, he'll find a way to kill them. Sometimes he pulls out a random ass crowbar from his back seat and pummel them in their head to death. Sometimes he'll just choke them out. Other times he'll kill them with a knife. Sometimes he leaves them alive so he can bring them back to the chamber and pretty much dismember them there. And even though that sounds like that's kind of premise enough, that's only the very setup for the rest of the movie because the rest of the movie is actually the aftermath of one of the kills. He ends up befriending this other lady, brings him back to his chamber, dismembers her, and ends up making the news. Of course, this lady's missing. After an investigation, the police find her head in the bottom of this river, and the husband finds out. The husband is a CIA special operative. It's kind of hard to describe because in the movie description, he's called a secret agent. And I guess that sounds silly to say here, but I guess in Korea, those are actually like titles that you can have. So he's a secret agent. And his goal then becomes to find out who the killer is and not just find them and kill him. He wants them he wants to make them pay and make them feel the same exact pain. So what he means by that is instead of just finding him and killing him, boom, that's it. No, he actually ends up playing this really sadistic game of cat and mouse through the whole movie. So he'll end up finding him. He'll fuck him up pretty bad. He'll kick his ass. He'll cut him up. he'll stab him, do something, and then let him go. He'll make sure that he's alive and he lets him go so he can like retreat, and then he'll go and chase him again the next day. And the next day he'll find him. He'll do something else. He'll like cut out his Achilles tendon. He'll then like throw him out and let him go free. So every day he just goes and chases him. So that way the killer lives in fear. And it ends up getting more extreme, more brutal every time that he goes back to kill him. So he's like, not to kill him, every time he goes back to attack him. So it's like the Punisher, kind of, in a sense. But he's only focused on this dude. And eventually the killer catches on to this and he realizes that he doesn't really want him dead. He's just toying with him, in a sense. And once he figures that out, he pretty much makes it so that the secret agent who's been chasing him, he finds out that he might have underestimated who he's toying with. And then it becomes pretty much a game of wits and intellect and knowledge. And that's the rest of the movie. But I got to say, dude, it's a good, gory time. And it may not fall into the category of straight horror, but I would say a good part of the movie does, because this guy who's a killer, dude, he's fucking sick in the head. He has like a lot of bad problems, and things that he does is pretty terrifying. So
That just sounds like a really
one that I would talk
it's
about.
like a reverse serial killer movie. It's like instead of showing the guy go out and kill people, it's like, oh, okay, like now I'm gonna fuck with you, and it's like him getting tortured. But then once he realizes, oh shit, you're doing this just to fuck with me. All right, so I'm gonna fuck with you back. It actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
I really want to watch that Inside movie and this one too. I have to find it somewhere.
yeah. Fortunately, Inside you'll have to find, but I do own a copy of I Saw the Devil on Blu-ray, so I'll bring it to you next time, dude. You got to watch it. I feel like you'd dig it.
Ah, sweet. Okay, awesome. I'm with it.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I mean, I wanted to go over everything just in one go because I know you haven't seen it, so there's not much you can say. But the thing that I think is more interesting about the movie that it brings up is it kind of questions itself, because it's not just a dumb, gruesome movie for the sake of it. It has a point, and that's what I admire about it. It brings up the question of like, this guy ends up doing really terrible stuff to this other guy for a reason, but then in the end, it starts to make you think: is he really that much better than who he's chasing? And it's just a really good question at that point.
Oh, it's like the Punisher.
Good shit.
It's almost like the Punisher. How they always say,
Kind of.
"Oh,
Yeah.
what makes you better than these guys? Because he's a killer and blah blah blah." So it's almost like the same concept, but I like that. It's a very interesting take on a horror genre. I fuck with it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anyways, you go on with yours.
Well, that's
for number 5.
So we're going into number 5, but do you want to do the honorable mentions now, or do you want to just jump right into 5?
You know what? Let's go over our 5. Once we go over that and we finish the list, we'll briefly talk about honorable mentions.
Okay, that's fair. So our last 5 is going to be like our top favorites. I may swap out my number 4 just because we touched on it heavily earlier. But my number 5 is going to be 30 Days a Night. It's based off of a comic book.
Nice.
It's not on your list, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But it was very close. It was almost going to beat out The Descent.
Okay, good. 30 Days a Night, based off of a comic book. It's about this guy named Evan and Stella. Well, Evan is the guy. Stella is his wife. They're cops in Alaska. They live in an area in Alaska where they do not see daylight for 30 days. And they are visited by this weird, creepy dude who just shows up out of nowhere. And basically, does things to kind of aid vampires to come and pretty much feast on the entire town for the entire 30 days. And then once the 30 days is up, what their plan is pretty much is just burn down the entire town. So that way they can rid any evidence of them ever being there. The reason why I fuck with this movie so much is because this was around the time that Twilight had come out. And you didn't really get a decent vampire film. I think since Blade. I think maybe since Blade, or maybe fuck. There's another vampire movie on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it.
There's Blade. Like a vampire killing movie?
Just horror movie in general.
There's probably a few. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But this movie, to me, the reason why I like it so much is because it flipped the vampire genre on its head. Like, these vampires are like, they come from the olden days. Like, they have the fangs, they have the very sharp nails. What do they speak? Transylvanian, I think. They have their own fucking language.
Yeah,
they have their own fucking language.
It's like some alteration of that.
Yeah, they have their own fucking creepy language, and that's why I fuck with it so heavy, is because it's so gory. It's what you would expect a vampire to actually be. Instead of this, I bit you on the neck, there's two little bite marks. Like, no, they actually like devour fucking other fucking like people. Like, it's like a feeding frenzy with these fucking things.
Like they eat them whole.
Like they fucking eat them until there's like really like nothing left. And the cool thing about it too is that they have like not a conscience, but they have like a, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you would say like a personality. Like they actually talk, they communicate with each other, so they're not like complete savages either. Like they're smart.
Yeah, they're not just mindless creatures. Like they have their own intellect stuff going on.
Yeah, and then like the other thing that I really liked about it too was that it was based off a comic. The comic is great. I mean the art's a little ugly.
Oh, you read it?
Yeah, I read the first one that the movie's initially based off of, but the art's a little ugly for my liking. No offense to the artist, but there's also
Yeah,
like
there's
yeah,
tastes.
there's also a bunch of different like sub stories in that 30 Days a Night, but I haven't read any of them. But I do like the fact that Evan turns himself into a vampire at the end of the movie and pretty much kills the top dog, and everybody gets scared of him, and that's how he saves everybody. I like that a lot. Then I've been like,
It's an epic ass
it
ending. I
is.
always thought it was.
Josh Hartnett always looks like he's gonna fucking cry. That's like my only complaint with this dude, but I liked him in this movie.
Yeah, he
I
does.
liked him in this movie. Like he did a good job. I know I've been kind of rambling on about it, but what did you think about it?
No, I haven't seen it recently, but I do remember thoroughly enjoying it when I did. I've seen it a couple times, and it's one of those that I was during the time. I think the first I was kind of late to the party watching it. Whenever I thought of vampires, I'm just like, oh, gay ass vampires, slow ass, atmospheric, even like Twilight esque vampires. But then I heard from like I think it was like a behind the scenes video or like a deep dive into 30 Days of Night, the comic, that the actual like creator of it or the writer, something like that. That's the reason why they wanted to make this comic because they wanted to bring vampires in a different kind of light. So instead of traditional vampires or like romantic vampires, you see savage fucking vampires, and that's kind of exactly what they are. And that's dope to me. And the movie is like very unapologetically brutal. There was a lot of scenes that the MPA wanted to cut, but they ended up keeping in. And I just remember it being a bloody good time. It's not really a whole lot else to say about it because it's just a simple vampire slasher movie in a way, but it's a good one. It's a good one. And is there a sequel?
There
Was there ever
is.
going to be one? Do you
No,
know?
there is a sequel. I have not seen it yet, but it's basically where Stella is trying to. I think she's just trying to hunt down vampires or something like that. I don't remember. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't know that they had stuff that they were trying to get cut out. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was. There's actually a few scenes. For one, I don't know. There's like a bunch in there, but one of the ones that stuck out to me was you remember the one about like the kids getting killed or the kids who were like frozen because they like had like they had like their throat slit or something. Do you remember anything about that?
No, the only thing I remember about a kid is where they decapitated that vampire girl, and that was it.
Was it that? Was it? Oh, maybe it was. Yes, yes, that one actually. That one. I'm sorry. I knew it had something to do with kids. With the vampire girl, the MPA didn't want that in there because they thought that having a child vampire get killed was just too much because they were a
A
child.
fucking
But
vampire.
they fought to keep that in there. Yeah, but they're a vampire. But they fought to keep it in there because of that reasoning and with everything else context wise, and they were actually able to dispute it, and they got their way, and they didn't have to cut it
And
out.
that's
So I
ridiculous.
thought that shit was dope.
That is just ridiculous that they're
It
trying to
is.
cut it. Like it'd be different if it was just like a normal child, but this fucking child was feasting on a grown ass man. Like the fuck. But okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's dude. Because of like the smallest things that could be like a little too sensitive to some people, they just think it's just too much to show. I don't know. I just hate things like that.
I
It's
agree. It's
stupid, but
fucking dumb.
I mean that's a whole other topic. But yeah,
All right, on to your number five.
dope, dope. That was a good one. I probably should have added it to the list. All right. Next, let's see here. Okay, so going into number fives, this is the cutoff. These are the elites. Anyways, okay. This next one is actually going to be one of my favorites. Again, maybe not just straight horror, but it's definitely a horror movie. It's undisputable. The original Evil Dead by Sam Raimi.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
Been a long time since I've seen it. I'll say. I do. I will say. I think I prefer the remake over the original. But that's just my preference.
I don't blame you for that. I actually
The
love the
remake is
remake
great.
too. I'm one of the minority. Yeah, I'm of the minority that loves the remake almost just as much as the original. I think the original is just barely over it, but the remake's good.
Coming down here, suck. It's
Anyways,
like a suck your
with that
cock, pretty boy. Yeah, just the off the wall shit that gets said in that movie is great.
Yeah, dude. Just like on a small tangent here. It's trying to be more of a modern take on the Evil Dead story, and it did that, but it still kept like the outrageous like statements like that and like dark humor. I love that. I thought it was just when I first saw the trailer for the
Oh,
remake of
dude,
the Evil Dead, I'm like, oh, they're just gonna try to make like a serious
dude,
ass movie, but it wasn't.
dude, that box cutter on the tongue. Oh man, I know it's fake, but they
Yeah,
just did a great job, just like
that was still.
slicing it down the middle. Oh man, but you go on.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, yeah. The original Evil Dead. We're talking about 1981, which is technically rated NC-17. Now that I look at that, that's actually new. I did not know that.
I didn't know that
But
either.
the original, yeah, the original's about this main character Ash and his girlfriend. They actually take three friends into the woods to a cabin to just kind of have like a fun night away. While they're in this cabin, just messing around. So then they end up finding this old book in the basement of this cabin. It's called something like the Necronomicon, something crazy and ridiculously long like that. And when you read the text, it ends up raising the dead that's around the area in that cabin. So they accidentally release a huge flood of evil dead, as the name calls it. And Ash and his friends either become possessed, or if they're not possessed, they're being tormented by the possessed people. And they're just trying to find a way to survive the night and save their friends from getting killed, or even just themselves. And knowing that this is a Sam Raimi movie, you're going to get some pretty funny ass shit because this movie, as scary as some parts were to me when I was little, even when I was a little kid, I couldn't deny that I had fun watching it because this is a crazy ass movie, dude. And the thing that I love about this one is it's such a simple story, but it's like it's having fun with the genre while also like paying homage to it. There's a lot of great special effects because it was a super low budget movie, and pretty much everything had to be practical. A lot of the actors went through like really bad moments when they were shooting, like they got hurt with the special effects or acting. This one girl who had to be raped by a tree, she got really scratched up and messed up by the tree. People were like falling during stunts and hurting themselves pretty bad, where they had to like take a few days off to shoot again. Sam Raimi was always running out of budget and had to keep finding ways to get more money to keep shooting. All of that taken into consideration is why I think this movie is such a success because it's such a fun watch, dude. The acting is great, I think, because it's very campy, but I have to believe it's self aware. It just seems like it is. Fucking Bruce Campbell's awesome as the
That
main
dude's
character,
always over
and
the
he ends up
top.
taking the whole
But I
series.
do like Bruce Campbell though.
He's always over the top. Yeah, he's awesome, but he's so over the top. He ended up taking the series down like all these sequels where it just
Yeah,
became something
Evil.
completely
What was
different.
it?
But
Ash versus the Army of the Dead, Evil Dead 2, then the TV show
Army of
Army of
Darkness, yeah, and then
Darkness.
Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah,
It's just good stuff. And but even with those separated, this one is just a fun watch. I think it's very over the top gory. It's gross. It's funny. It's disgusting, and sometimes it is pretty just scary on its own. I think it's a great success, and it's always going to be one of my favorites for that. I throw it on. That's another one I put on at least once a year during Halloween. So, do you have any thoughts on that, or what do you
it's been
think?
so long since I've seen the original. I can't really speak too much about it. Like you said, all that stuff kind of coming in consideration as to how he made it. Like I had more
Yeah.
props for it. Like I said, just for I don't know. I guess for novelty effects, I think that the remake is like way better. But no, I mean it's a
Mhm.
dope ass movie. It does deserve a rewatch. I'll say that.
Yeah, it definitely can if you have a chance to see if you changed anything on that. But I really have no disagreement or any bad thoughts about you preferring the remake because I do love the remake as well. So
Remake is the shit.
see, that's what being open minded will do for you folks.
Yeah, and like all these DC
Anyways,
shills. But anyway, gonna move on to our number four. This is a movie that I've been telling you to watch for the longest time. It's PG-13, but I think it definitely caught great elements of horror. It's Dark Skies. Um,
yeah, you haven't told.
Basically about this family who is targeted by a group of extraterrestrials, or as they call them, the Greys in this movie. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is. They're targeted by them, and there's very subtle, weird things that start happening to the family, like, all their food is out of the fridge one night, and then the next night, all their pictures are gone out of all the frames. And then the next night, all the alarms, the alarm system gets tripped, and the guy calls the alarm company to see which sensor was tripped, and she tells him all of them. It's like, how the hell does all the alarm sensors get tripped? So it's very weird things that just happen throughout the movie, and it gives you chills just because you're just like, damn, like, his family can't catch a break. The wife and the wife and husband are constantly kind of like, they're on good terms, but they're very stressed. The dad can't find a job. He's very qualified for a lot of things, but he can't keep a job or find one. They have two young boys, and one boy is going through adolescence and is just trying to find his place, with his peers and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that's really the most that I can tell you about it without ruining it too much. Um, it's
Yeah, no, you don't want to go into detail. I do plan on
It's on
seeing
my
that one.
account,
Yeah.
fucker. Watch it. Um, I will say J. Jonah Jameson makes an appearance in that movie. What's his name?
Did you say Parker?
No, he doesn't say Parker, but he does talk in the same kind of voice. what's his name? J.K. Simmons. Yeah, he's in that movie very
Yeah.
briefly. But there's always something to me. I think, and it ties back to our discussions earlier about this horror genre is that like the unknown is just like really scary. Yeah, like it's just the weird subtle things to me that are just always like the scariest versus like what's actually happening. Like it's always the events that lead up to the climax of the horror that always get me the most.
And I guess when you think about it, it just kind of makes sense. I think that maybe even if people realize it or don't realize it, maybe some more people have the same common thing that scares them the most. Because I mean, fear itself is just a mechanism that's designed to help to keep you alive and to survive. And the unknown is not knowing what you can do to survive against something. So just that alone, it's automatically just like that would be scary if I was in that situation. So I can see that 100%.
But yeah, that's all I have for it because you haven't seen it, so we won't kind of go back and forth. So that was my number four. It's time for yours, right? Yeah, you're number four.
Well, I do plan on it. I will. I will. I just keep forgetting, to be honest. But now that description makes me want to see
You
it,
should.
and you should see it too if you're. All right. Anyways, okay. All right. Next, we're gonna move on to my number four, which is Alien. Is that on yours?
It is. It's actually my number two. Since it's
Hey,
in our
look at
top
that. All
five,
right. Well, if you
since
have
it's in
anything,
our top five, like I'm not gonna change my list for this. But yeah, we'll just
nah, you don't. If you have anything to say, we'll
yeah, we'll
talk
talk
about it
about it
now.
now. So Alien, yeah, classic by Ridley Scott.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna let you. I don't know. I'm very passionate about Alien. I'm an Alien fanboy.
I'm not going to go over much. I'm not going to go over much because we probably both have a lot to say
Fair
about it.
enough.
So, just basic, brief thing to start off. Uh, Alien, it's a classic. It definitely deserves to be called one. I guess in just the most everybody's seen Alien, but most general terms, pretty much tow truck drivers in space. No, I'm just kidding, but they're like they're not military, anything like that. Aren't they just like people who carry
Yeah,
cargo
they're
or some kind of
cargo.
shit like that,
Yeah,
or
they
they're
pretty
just
much carry cargo.
yeah,
They
there you
get
go.
sent a distress signal to check out a planet, and they go there, and it's covered with eggs, and it's the chest or face
They weren't
huggers.
expecting or prepared for
Yep,
that.
it's just yeah. So yeah, they pretty much go and find these life forms on the planet. It's got our girl Sigourney Weaver in it. When she was good looking back in the day.
And unfortunately, they find out that it just might happen to be that if in this certain case they need to be taken out in order to get this specimen back for research, they're 100% expendable. And therein lies the problem with the whole movie. So, where to start with this one? I think Ridley Scott was kind of ahead of his time, and not like it didn't go over well, but I don't think we really saw a whole bunch of movies like Alien when it came out around the time. I can't really think of other ones like that when it comes to like slow burn build up horror, where you pretty much spend like the first 40 minutes to an hour just like knowing the crew and understanding what's going on. You know what I
No,
mean?
I agree 100%. Yeah, it is one of those more slower burn movies, I'll say, but it's definitely one of those things that just kind of pay off in the end. Um, fun fact, that whole scene where the chest burster comes out, apparently the whole crew, like when they were filming, the actors, they had no idea that was going to happen. So all those
Yeah,
scares and
because of the
stuff,
dark.
that like those were actual genuine scares.
Yeah, they told, of course, the special effects people, and then the guy who was going to have it come out of
John
them.
Hurt, yeah.
But the other actors, those were their genuine reactions. So when you see that, they didn't know what was going to happen, and they found a way to make it come out like that in a way that they wouldn't know. So when you see them like reacting, you'd be like, "Oh fuck!" Like shit, it's real stuff, and I think that just adds so much to it because you'd probably react in a similar way too if you saw some out of the world shit like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know, Alien is one of my favorite franchises. Like, period. Like to me,
Mm.
like I don't know. Like, there's just so many things I could just fucking say about it, and I don't want to spend forever talking about it. But I just
Well, without going through like forever, if is what do you think about, for example, maybe just like the way it plays out as a horror movie, like Alien or the Xenomorph as a design, the characters, pacing, anything in particular that stands out to you?
no. I mean, it's definitely to me, it's a very well balanced movie. Yeah, I will say like the whole puppet and practical effects are kind of horrible. Kind of looking back on it, but for its time, it was great. And I mean, I still think the xenomorph is one of the most menacing things to ever be created. I mean, you got H.R. Geiger, his weird ass, drawing up all this shit. So I think with his,
Making it have like a sexual
yeah, all the
undertone.
weird sexual rapey undertones that he puts in all his like, designs and stuff, definitely I feel like adds a lot to it. The fact that the thing is on average like 6.5 feet to 7 feet tall, it's got these dorsal tubes sticking out with a sharp ass tail and blood for acid and all this crazy stuff is just a ultimate killing machine. And if you're on a big ass spaceship and your limited crew is 5, 4, 3, and everybody's just getting killed one by one, it's definitely a scary,
The perfect
yeah, the
organism.
perfect organism. And it doesn't help the fact that the fucking android sent by the fucking company wanted to basically get everybody killed, but like you said, everybody was expendable at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of where everything lies into, and it of course turns into a series that teeters off into other things, but just that one as a standalone movie. I do remember that one scaring me the first
Oh,
time I watched it.
100%.
Even when I wasn't,
Yeah.
yeah, because I was little, so of course that was gonna scare the shit out of me. But even before that, I don't remember ever being bored for like a single minute of that. When you're like just meeting the crew and everything, and I think it's because of the atmosphere. I haven't seen a whole lot of space movies at that point. I think the set design was really cool. Them coming out of the chamber was just interesting to see. Them kind of being accustomed to like hanging out and eating and shit after being in like cryo sleep for so long. Just everything about the setup for this concept, it just works, and you're not bored. And by the time the horror element starts sneaking in, you're already on board. So just a classic. I mean, nothing else I can really think to
Yeah.
say about it, unless we want to go into three
Yeah,
hours.
we
But
can talk
yeah,
about Alien and Prometheus and all that shit all day. But that was your number
yeah,
4, right? So it's now
that was my
time for my
four.
number 3, and I'm pretty sure that this is on your list as well. You're just gonna have to tell me where it placed at, but it's gonna be John Carpenter's The Thing.
Damn, believe it or not, that's literally my
That's
number
your
one.
number
That's
one.
always been my
Oh
favorite horror
man.
movie. Yeah, number one.
So
It's all good. I mean, we can get all that now,
you'll hear
but
my
yeah,
number
that's it.
one. But yeah, The Thing. So when did that movie come out? In
Dude,
70, or no? It's got to be early 80s, right?
let me see
82.
here. So
Yeah.
when we look at that one, 82, yeah, because I know the original was like 50 something, and
Mm-hmm.
then this one came out
Then
52.
they
Or
then they
sorry,
had the
82.
remake. Well, not remake. It was a prequel in 2016. But
Yeah,
since it's your favorite, since it's your number one, I'm just actually gonna let you take the floor on it, and then I'll add to it. So
dope, dope. Well, the thing. I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know. This one has always been one that stuck with me for a multitude of reasons. But so the thing. Just to give a brief description here. So in Antarctica, there's this group of scientists, and what they want to do is they want to research uh, there's like some kind of disturbance that happens at their base. And what ends up happening is they notice that there's this helicopter that's chasing this dog in the snow, and it's shooting at it. It's just firing off at it, and they're just wondering what the hell's going on. So they end up taking in the dog, because who wouldn't, right? And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, the dog starts brutally attacking all the other human beings, and
well,
also
it
other
attacks
dogs
it
in the
attacks
camp as
the
well.
attacks the dogs
And
first, and then humans.
yeah, yeah, well, pretty much. So it starts attacking people, starts attacking the dogs. Not in that order apparently, but what ends up happening is they start seeing that it's actually a beast that can start to shapeshift into one of its victims. So it's not something that becomes anything in particular that you can look at and decipher that it's something bad or wrong. It's just a shapeshifter. So after this, Kurt Russell, who happens to be the main character,
McCready.
he kind of goes with the camp. McCready. Him and the doctor, they end up leading this camp crew, and it's just a big, gory, desperate battle against this creature, and they're trying to find a way to pick it off and kill it and pretty much take care of it before it takes care of all of them. It's this alien creature. It can fuck you up. It can shapeshift. It can deceive you, and it's fucking terrifying. And I love this movie because I mean, Jesus Christ, man, this movie is so insane. And I think John Carpenter deserves all the credit in the world because I don't know if you knew, but apparently this movie did abysmal when it came out. Like it was trashed by critics and it didn't do good
Oh,
box office wise. People
but
actually slept on it
everybody,
until
the
like 10
fan
years
service,
later.
everybody loved it.
Yeah, yeah. It was just in the beginning because it was like trashed on, but then fans started seeing it and they're like, they didn't understand. And then as time went on, like 10, 15 years later, that just started spreading and then everybody realized it for the genius that it was. But the reason why I love this movie is just to give off a few quick things and I'll let you go on about it because this was your pick. I love the setting. I think the
Isolation.
Antarctica snow base setting, it's so cool, man, because you're isolated. they're just there to research some shit. They don't have resources. They don't really have like services they can call, right? Two, the creature. The fucking creature is awesome. And I know it's from this. Apparently, it's an adaptation from this book called
Yeah.
"Who Goes There," and that's what the original film was based on. And I guess, it was based more on the book because in the original they couldn't do like crazy special effects. It was just this like zombie dude running around killing people. But since they could do different effects at that time, then they started doing practicals with like crazy alien morphing, dismemberment, and like just crazy shit like that. And I always thought the practical effects were amazing when I first saw it, and I still think that today. I don't think they've aged terribly at all. And then number three is the direction. Uh, Kurt Russell is awesome in this movie. I love him as the main character. I don't really think there's a bad performance at all. And the movie makes you think because you're watching the whole way through, and if you haven't seen it before and it's your first time, you're wondering who it could be, if it is one of the humans, if maybe it's not one of the humans yet. Is it someone that you think it is, or you think it's someone else, but then it's not? And then by the time you realize that you're wrong, it's fucking someone else up. So that's just my type of horror, and that's why it's my pick for number one. But if I didn't get anything, you can pick it.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that you said about it. It's pretty much again the unknown. Um, yeah, it's just like you said, the effects, they have not aged at all. You know, during the last 30 years, it's definitely very horrifying stuff to look at. It's definitely stuff that never struck me as corny. Like when I watched it, like even when I watch it now, it's not even like corny. It's like, man, that looks fucked up.
Nah,
Yeah, like that.
perfect. It should
Like
give me
that, like
nightmares
that,
whenever I
that
saw
shit
it.
looks fucked up. Like I want no part of that. And the whole point of the thing, too, like you said, the creature, the whole point of it is to keep manifesting and growing and pretty much just assimilate anything it can. You know, my main point to that is when that one dude was on the operating table and his chest opened up and cut the other guy's arms off. The thing's
Yeah,
head separated itself from its body because it didn't know if it was gonna get out of that situation, you know? So it separated itself with the intent
yeah,
of going somewhere and potentially taking the form of something else. So yeah, it's just like,
fucking
and the
crazy.
whole part of the movie with the blood test, infamous scene, you know, you got fucking Kurt Russell over here talking shit the entire time, and then right when he fucking touches the blood, it shrieks, and then they realize, oh fuck, it's like, yeah! Yeah, and then once he realized it was too late, and then this fucking flamethrower doesn't work. So I mean, the way that it fucking just got up and grabbed that dude by the fucking face, like the little
Flinging him around
dude,
like a
like
rag doll.
the little things again in that movie. The fact that the like once the thing knew it was found out, like it just starts shaking violently. The face starts sagging and the eyes start bleeding. I'm like, oh man, like some shit's about to fucking pop off. But yeah, I mean, it's just shit like that that just make the movie so good. I will say before I move on to my
Yeah,
number one of the funniest fucking parts of that movie, I don't is when the doc, the fat bald dude with the glasses, the one who realized that the thing could assimilate anybody it wanted to.
yeah, the
Yeah.
diabetes dude.
One of the funniest fucking parts of the movie is when he's in there trying to shoot him, and he's like going crazy. And the funniest part is when they bash him with the fucking table, and then Kurt Russell hits him, and you hear. That shit fucking makes me laugh every fucking time I watch it. Like he fucking decks the fuck out of him, and then the noise that they have come after it is like funny as shit.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I feel like there's other funny moments too, but that's a big one. And I know you're going to move on, but just as you might know this one already, but as a fun fact for maybe our listeners who didn't know, if you've seen that movie, that scene that you talked about where it opens up and cuts the guy's arm off, that actor was actually an amputee. So they just attached prosthetics to his non-existing arms, and then they got cut off for real by the machine, which is
Wow,
kind of
did
cool.
not know that. The more you know.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But anyways, there's a lot of things to love about the thing. If you have not seen it, trust me, you're
Now,
missing out.
before we
Please do yourself a
before
favor
we
and
do
see it.
move on, what do you think about the prequel?
You know what? I think the prequel. I've seen behind the scenes videos about it too, and I know you've seen the ones I'm talking about, the one by Good Bad
Hmm.
Flicks. I think the intention was great because they didn't seem like they were trying to do a cash grab. They genuinely seemed like they thought they couldn't upshow the original. I'm sorry, not the original, John Carpenter's version. So they didn't want to try to do that. They wanted to make a companion piece, but unfortunately, due to studio meddling, they fucked up with a lot of the
Yeah,
effects, and because of that, the effects look dated. I saw it, dude. The CG
it
doesn't look
doesn't.
good, and it really sucks because I like the story. The
And
story
I
is actually
do. I
cool. It
commend
shows
them.
how you
I
see
commend
certain
them because they
things.
literally was
Yeah,
they're trying to piece together crime scenes. They pretty much just had assumptions the entire time where they were just like, okay, well this happened, but what if we made it this way and then that's why that happened, you know? So
yeah. They took scenes from John Carpenter, like dead bodies that you would see, and they would actually put together a story based on how it came to be like that. And it wasn't bad. It was actually a pretty cool concept. It's just that unfortunately it didn't come out as great because people thought the CG was bad, which they're not wrong for thinking, and the movie suffered. But overall, without that, it's not that bad, dude. I actually like it. I watch it. It's just, of course, compared to your John Carpenter's thing, it's not as good. But it
agreed.
just kind of sucks that that happened.
Agreed. That's honestly the worst downfall for a lot of movies. But moving on. That's studio fucking meddling.
Well, since I kind of went over through yours and overlapped and got you to number one, I still have a few left that I'll just go over really quick, and then we'll go over my number one. Or my number one's the thing, but we'll go over my number two. I mean, okay. So next one. This is a French horror,
Another
or I guess
international.
it's technically considered an extreme horror movie. You know what, dude? I actually find that a lot of foreign movies upshow American movies like a shit ton. It's very common. But anyways, with that being said, this one is called
Heard
Martyrs.
about it.
This movie was made Yeah, this movie was made in 2008, and it's one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen in my life. I did not feel okay for a couple, maybe like half an hour after watching it. It just made me feel some type of way, even knowing it's a movie, knowing it's fantasy. This movie's legendary, and people who've seen it usually kind of come to that same agreement too. Um, just to kind of, I really don't want to give too many big spoilers because I really do want people to see this one more. If you haven't, you really should see it. But when it comes to this one, this is a movie about two young women who are both victims of abuse as children. So what I mean by that is there's this family who tortures children as part of a cult mentality. So they have a purpose to do this, but they nab little children when they're alone or when they're like separated from their parents, and they end up torturing them through their whole lives. Not killing them, they just torture them to make them feel maximum amount of pain. And what ends up happening is one of the girls who they had in their captivity ends up escaping, and she gets away from them. So she grows up and she becomes a fucked up adult because of all the terrible trauma that she went through, the memories of being tortured for almost like 10 years of her childhood life. And she is so fucked up by this memory and she can't deal with it anymore that she realizes the only way that she's going to get past this is if she finds the people who did this to her and she kills them and murders them. That's the only way that she can put this demon to rest. So she finds her best friend who heard about her captivity, and she was always good to her growing up. Pretty much her only friend that she had that understood whenever she had like a psychotic episode is because of what she went through. And she's like, you need to help me go find these people so I can kill them because they did these wrong things to me. So they end up executing that plan without spoiling too much. They kind of take care of the people who did this to her, but they fall into a trap of the rest of the cult who finds out that she came back for revenge. And there are really bad things that happen in the rest of the movie to those two girls, especially her friend who she dragged into this, but wasn't even really part of the main conflict. And by the time the movie's over, there's just really no winners at all, and you just feel really disturbed. I really don't want to say any more because I do recommend that you watch it. It is on my account with subtitles. Please watch it when you can. It's really great, disturbing, and Selena and I watched it together, and she hasn't wanted to watch it since. But that's what that one is for Martyrs. Do you have any questions before I go to
I'm
number
down.
two?
I want to watch it. Is it on your Voodoo account?
Dope.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on there. It's just subtitles, of course, but yeah, check it, dude. It's good. There again, just like a lot of other great horror foreign movies, there is an American remake, Martyrs,
It's trash.
2013. It came out by Blumhouse, and it's trash, dude. It fucking sucks. I hate it. I hated it. It's. I don't even want to talk about it. It doesn't even deserve any attention. Don't watch the American Martyrs. Watch the French Martyrs.
Betraying the
Okay.
Martyrs.
Anyways,
The French
number
metal
two.
band.
All right. Anyways, so yeah, watch Martyrs. Okay. Number two. Next one is The Fly.
Okay.
And I know you've seen this one too. This one would also be considered kind of more of like a sci-fi horror thriller, but I've always loved The Fly. This is another one that is a remake of a 50s movie,
Fly is great.
but I think it's awesome because, yeah, it's a great movie. We're looking at Jeff Goldblum, the chick from Stuart Little,
Beetlejuice as
who was
well.
the mom, and yeah, Beetlejuice as well. And just a quick synopsis. I know you've seen this one already, so I'm not going to go over it. There's not a whole lot to go over, really. Pretty much the bottom line is the scientist, Seth Brundle, he builds this teleportation device. And it's his big achievement here. He decides to try to use it. Obviously, he's got to test the machine on himself. He doesn't realize that a housefly actually goes into the machine during the transfer process, and he ends up getting morphed. He becomes part fly, part human because of the switch. And as time goes on with the movie, he starts changing along with the traits and attributes of a fly. And the whole movie pretty much just becomes watching his descent into that until at the very end, it just becomes a freaking over the top, all out kind of gore fest kind of movie. I mean, I don't know how else to really describe it, but I love it the way that this movie plays out. It's a lot different from the beginning, and it's a big transformation, but it somehow works. I'm not really sure what it is that works for me, but it kind of turns into body horror at the end, and I think it's very effective. And I know you just saw it recently because you haven't seen it pretty much ever, but then you
Yeah,
saw it.
you
So,
told me to watch
well,
it,
what do you
and I
think of The
did.
Fly?
It was probably about a good year and a half ago. I loved it. I love the fact that a lot of the practical effects reminded me of The Thing, so that's probably why I liked it as much as I did.
Probably
But
why
yeah,
for me
a lot
too.
of it
Yeah.
was just I don't know, very disturbing. Like the fact that he starts sprouting wings out his back and his hair starts falling out and his skin starts getting like really slimy and oily. Just ugh.
He starts like
Oh yeah,
his
his
mouth
teeth
just
fall
gets like
out.
slimy and always has
Yeah,
like this
his
liquid.
teeth fall out. I forgot. His teeth fall out. He starts like spitting up on things so he can eat them. Like it's fucking gross. Uh,
Yeah, I think it gets me. Yeah, I think that's why it gets me. I wouldn't even say that this one is like it scared me or it gave me nightmares. It just creeped me out because I didn't. I something about body horror really got to me, especially when I was younger. And body horror to me is even though he doesn't look like he's in pain, he's losing
yeah,
himself as a human.
he's
You know
not
what I
even
mean?
like
Like
the
his
same
human
person
self is like
anymore. Right?
deteriorating around him.
Like
Yeah, yeah, his human is pretty much dying, and it's kind of scary when I think about it. And I think it was done well. And I'm gonna be that contrarian. I've seen the original '50s The Fly. I didn't think it was that good. I thought it was kind of boring, and I think this remake was way
it's fucking
better. So,
trash.
I mean, that's another reason
That's
too.
fair.
I mean, it was probably scary for its time. I'm sure it was because people would have fucking pissed themselves if they
Oh,
saw like
dude, can
movies
you
today.
imagine people
But
in the
you know,
'40s watching movies that we watch now? Oh my god.
yeah,
They wouldn't
yeah.
even
So
be
you have
scared.
to
Their
think of it
minds
at
would
that
just be fucking
time.
blown. I don't even think they'd be scared. I think they'd just be like, how the fuck did they do that?
They would like die and have like cardiac arrests in the
They'd be like,
theater.
how the
Yeah.
fuck did they do this? But okay. I dig it. I was not expecting The Fly to be that high on your list, but my number one,
You
go
know
ahead.
what?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go on. I was gonna say it was almost beat out by a lot of the other ones. I had to think about it more and actually ended up watching it the other day too. I don't know, man. Something about that one. I really just enjoy watching. There's not really a time I don't
The
mind
effects,
watching
man.
it at all. So
It's good.
I just figured
Especially
I'd
at the
be
end
on
of the
there.
movie where he pretty much just becomes like this blob of like random shit.
Full
And
on plot.
he's like, kill me. He's like, please. Which is kind of sad if you really think about it, because he's like,
That part disturbs me. It just yeah, that part kind of kills me.
it's really sad because he's
You
just
feel bad
like,
for him.
yeah, it's fucked up. But anyway, my number one is gonna be Saw. Actually, Jigsaw. Psych, psych.
Saw?
You fucking thought.
Oh. I was about to say
Fuck out of here with
the
that
fuck.
bullshit.
Okay.
First one, my number one is actually gonna be The Shining. There's just something about The
Yay!
Shining to me
Nice.
that just like, I don't know, man. It's just like the shit. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty sure as everybody knows what The Shining is about. It's about Jack Torrance, Jack Nicholson back then. Another Stephen King adaptation. Stanley Kubrick made it, but basically, he is a caretaker for a hotel. In the interview process, they tell him that the previous caretaker pretty much went nuts, killed his family, killed himself, and he takes the job anyway. He, kind of just like whatever about it. And yeah, he takes the job, and then
Right.
pretty much as to me, slow descent movies like really like do it for me. But yeah, pretty much as the movie goes on, he descends into madness and psychosis the entire time. Starts
Going
seeing
into his own evil demons, I guess.
the hotel too also is on a Native American burial ground. So there's also like a bunch of like spirits and stuff that don't really help with the visions that he's getting. Like, he goes psycho, he goes to a bar, and the bartender's like, yeah, man, just kill your family. He's like, just kill my family. It's like, yeah, and then all of a sudden you start to see like his behavior change towards ugly ass Shelley Duvall. um, her horrible crying face. But anyway, it's just like when he like when she asks like how he's doing and stuff. It's just like comes off normal at first, and then all of a sudden he just starts becoming a really irate and very just pissed off, and it's just like very irritable. It's just
Irritable
like holy
person.
shit, like where the fuck is this coming from? And he's like, he's like, 'cause you don't think. Like he just starts berating her, and and then it's just a slow descent from there. Um, but yeah, it's that's the reason why I like it a lot. I always get chills when he's like looking outside the window, and that scene that I'm talking about where he's just looking outside the window and he's in that turtleneck and he's just staring out into the window. Oh
Yeah,
man, this is great. Actually, it makes me
yeah.
laugh, but it's just like when you think about the situation and what it is that's going on, you're like, this motherfucker's about to go crazy. Like, like this is just the start of him going psycho.
It's just it's very effective. It's put together very well because scenes like that, it's just you watch it and you're very upfront about his face, what he's looking at, and how long he's looking at it for, and how long like Kubrick chooses to just show you that for the longest time. It just comes across kind of the way he intends it. And I'll just go on record right now. Um, I I was actually going to put The Shining on my list, but the only reason why it's not is
Ah,
because I
damn.
forgot about it. So I'll just take the L. But yeah, but I will say I don't. I just want to put on record that it would have been on my list if I remembered. But
Fair
with that
enough.
being said, yeah, the Shining is great. One of my all time favorite horror movies, and I think it's if I try to really analyze why I like it, because obviously there's a lot of people who love it. There's all these reasons too. So I'm trying not to sound like cliche of like, but why I like it is kind of the feel that it gives off. I think that you start not sympathizing with Jack because if you kind of look at him objectively, he's always kind of being the one who's an asshole, right? But you can see the influences he has in the hotel because I think the hotel starts to become a character of its own, maybe because of the Indian burial ground or something. But that whole set and scene that he's in, where he's confined to, it's just there's something sadistic or off with it at every time you're watching, and it works out well. And even with ugly ass, like you said, Shelley Duvall, with all of that, and maybe some sillier aspects. Uh, Man, that music! As soon as the movie starts and you start hearing that song, and then they get yeah, it just makes me feel some sort of way every time. And Jack Nicholson is one of the weirdest looking dudes, but I think he couldn't have been more perfect for this kind of movie
Oh,
because it just
definitely
works
works
so
for him.
well.
There's always that
And
role. There's always those certain roles that actors take that just like define them, and like is always going to be their best role, and no matter what they do after it, will never top it. Um,
yeah, like Jack Nicholson was meant to be in The Shining. I can't see anyone else. I literally, that's a cliche to say, but I can't imagine anyone else being in that role except
100%.
Jack Nicholson. So
Then we got
it just, it's
then we got Doctor Sleep coming out soon. I'm looking forward to that. I don't I don't know I don't know. Yeah, fucking Ewan
Obi-Wan.
McGregor. I don't know if you can really speak much about Doctor Sleep, but I know it's about his son Danny. But they go into more about what his powers are. I think like why he was able to talk to that black guy the entire time that he was there, and I think Doctor Sleep is about other people trying to take his power. I guess.
Yeah, Doctor Sleep. That one's going to be interesting because um, apparently there's going to be a weird take that they're kind of bringing with this one. This one's directed by Mike Flanagan. He did Oculus. I'm a big fan of his. He did that Netflix show, Haunting on Hill House or Haunting of Hill House.
Okay.
Fucking Ouija Origin of Evil, even though the original sucked. But the reason why I'm interested in this is because he stated that Doctor Sleep is it's a little bit of both. It's not just a sequel to The Shining. It is that, but he didn't just make this movie based as a sequel of The Shining. It's actually an adaptation of Stephen King's book, Doctor Sleep.
Right.
So basically, there might be some aspects that might not align to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining because Stephen King famously did not like his Shining movie. So he's actually more focused on adapting the book rather than being a sequel to the film. So, for example, the black guy, how he dies at the end of The Shining in the book, he actually doesn't die. He's still alive in Doctor Sleep. So he's supposed to be still alive for this movie, and it's more focused on people trying to. He already knows about his powers, of course, because he's been dealing with this shit his whole life, and he's apparently like really he's like kind of traumatized by his powers, but at the same time not. Like he's learning to focus and like harness them, but then people are trying to take them away from him and that kind of process is supposed to be very brutal and scary. So it's kind of focused on that. So it may not. I mean, it is still a sequel to The Shining, but some parts might not be consistent because of that, because it's more focused on the book, which is different from the movie. So I'm very interested to see how that falls. Like, how can you do that? How can you be a sequel to a very popular movie that's different from the source material, but then also be adaptation of the sequel of the source material? You know what I mean?
No, I did not know that that was like what it is that they were going for. It's really
Yeah, that's what they
interesting.
did.
Yeah, I did hear that Stephen King did not like The Shining at all. I did not know the differences between the movie and the book. Did not know that the black dude is still alive in the book. So it kind of sounds like he's trying to retcon stuff from the actual movie. But I get it. Like, I get what he's trying to do. Now that you explained it, he's literally just trying to adapt the book. That's literally all that he's trying to do. Rather than having it be continuous from the actual Shining, back in the 80s or late 70s, he's just adapting. He's just adapting what happened in the book, Doctor Sleep.
Right.
So,
So that's really interesting because I don't really agree with Stephen King in this instance. A lot of people don't, but I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. But he always thought that The Shining, that Stanley Kubrick made, was not faithful to his book at all. So he actually hired a different dude to make a TV miniseries called The Shining that actually follows the book a lot closer. Have you ever heard of that one? It was like a 5 episode miniseries or something.
is that coming
Yeah.
out soon?
No, no, no. This was made a long time ago. It was made in like the early 2000s. It was like a whole different cast. You can actually watch it on YouTube. I think the whole thing's put together for free. It's kind of long, but Stephen King was actually a producer of this miniseries. It's like the It miniseries, and it's the whole Shining story, but with a whole new cast. And it's not as scary. The effects are much worse. I think it's really bad, but apparently that's what's faithful to the book. So he prefers that one. He never liked Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. So now they Doctor Sleep is coming out. Apparently he's very involved with this one, and he wanted to make sure that it's like an adaptation of his original Doctor Sleep book that's based on his first The Shining book, which is what the movie's about. But the movie's like the producers who are making the movie, they're not dumb. They know that people love The Shining, so they're also trying to find a way to make it tie into both. So it's like a good sequel to the movie, but it's also a good adaptation to the book. So that's like a hard ass task. I don't know how they're gonna pull it off, but if they do, I'm more than down. That sounds like it'll be cool, but we'll see. I don't know, man.
Kind of sounds like what Neil Blomkamp was trying to do with Alien. Like, he was trying to
Kinda,
make
yeah,
a sequel to Aliens, but have it ignore Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection.
exactly.
So
Right.
it's kind of interesting to kind of think about that. But all right, well, I think that concludes our Shining talk. We got some honorable mentions. You had some, or was that mainly just me?
I have a few. You might have some more. Again, just really quick here. We're kind of pressed for time, but yeah, like we're a TV show on a schedule, right? Anyways, all right. So honorable mention. I actually have here. Oh God, what? Maybe I don't. Actually, I don't know if I do. You go. I'm gonna see if I can find any. Sorry, you go. What are your honorable mentions you got?
So I had one, two, three, four, five. I had five honorable mentions. Like I said, I will just touch base on them very briefly. One of them was The Witch, A24 movie. You told me to watch it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. What'd you think? Okay, you never told me what you thought.
It was great. No, yeah, of course I did. I messaged you about it. I just need to get Amani to watch it, but I liked it a lot. Very eerie, disturbing as well. Sacrament. That was another one of my honorable mentions. Have you heard of Sacrament?
No, I haven't.
So basically, it's another cult movie. And basically, this guy hires a news crew, a cameraman, and some other guy that pretty much does the reporting to come follow him to the sanctuary that his sister is a part of a cult, and hires them to
Yeah.
follow him to that place. And it's shot the same way the Quarantine is shot, so it's POV
Mhm.
film, but it's the cult movie, so it's a lot of like weird, creepy shit that goes on. So you should watch it.
Oh, nice. Okay. Cool.
Another one I had was Ginger Snaps. Have you seen the Ginger Snaps movies at all?
I've only seen the first one. That was actually one of my honorable mentions too.
Yeah, Ginger Snaps is great. Two sisters. I think it takes a unique twist on the werewolf genre, because I know in this movie, like, you get bit, but like once you get bit and become a werewolf, like, you can't revert back to being human. Like, so I thought that was kind of like a neat twist on it. So instead of like standard traditional werewolf rules where, oh, it's a full moon, I'm turning into one. Like, no, once you turn into a wolf and your transformation's over, like, that's it. Like, you're stuck.
That's it.
So that's one of my honorable mentions. Another one I had was Autopsy of Jane Doe. Um, I really liked that movie a lot. It was very close to being on my list, but I just kind of decided that it wasn't enough to make it. Um, for the viewers, it's about a boy and his dad, or what do you say, a boy? The nigga's a grown ass man. But anyway,
Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
a father and a son, they work at a morgue together. I said obituary because I'm stupid, but they work at a morgue together, and they come across this body that pretty much was at a very odd crime scene, and they're trying to do an autopsy of it of this unidentified person, which is why they call it Jane Doe, and they just find all these really weird things with the body that just don't really make any sense. And then after they start their autopsy, just weird shit starts happening in the morgue. So
Right.
that's a great movie. I thought it was a very original idea, and so yeah, I liked it a lot. And then lastly, had Scream on here. Um, Scream is funny as shit. Like I don't know, like the reason why Scream is an honorable mention is because like it's more slasher in my opinion. I wouldn't call it horror. Um,
I mean,
and the
that's still
reason why,
horror.
yeah, you're right. But the reason why it's an honorable mention and it didn't really make my list is because it's a very self-aware movie. Like, it's funny because when you watch the first one, like that to me, the first one is the best one is because the stakes are super high. Then when you watch the second, third, and fourth one, it's kind of like, okay, well, obviously this is kind of like self-aware and it's a joke. So I just felt like they became more like parodies as time went on, but they were still good written films, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny. You're gonna laugh. Scream One was actually one of my honorable mentions. I only have a few, but that was one of them too. Because you kind of already hit it, so I'm not gonna brood on too long. But I actually like how it's self-aware and it like makes fun of horror tropes while at the same time
Yep,
paying homage to other horror movies, and it does a really good job. And even if you don't understand the references or you don't get other things that it's making fun of, it's still a decent horror movie by itself. So I think that's kind of an achievement. But
I
yeah,
agree.
Scream, I would say great. So
And
is
other
that
funny thing about it, other funny thing about it is that pretty much her whole fucking family's trying to kill her. Like you don't realize it in the first and second movie, but you watch the third one, it's like, oh, okay, it's all because her fucking
it like
half
all
brother.
ties together? Yeah.
And then in the fourth movie, it was her cousin. So it's like, damn, bitch, like your whole family fucking hates you. Feel bad for her.
I don't know if
There
you
was
remember enough, but I thought number four was better than three.
100%. I
Yeah,
agree
I like four, but
completely.
I remember not liking three that much.
So my favorite is one, four, two, and three. Three is my least favorite.
Hey, holy crap!
Yeah,
You're like sending those brains again.
I like the first one the best. But I was gonna say, a part of honorable mention. Would you consider Ex Machina a horror movie?
Uh, no, I wouldn't. It's not really a horror. I don't think it's more of a it's more of a psychological thriller at most. I would say to me,
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
I mean, there's some stuff that happens in the end that's kind of crazy, but it's not. I wouldn't really call it horror, no. But
Yeah,
it
you
is a
wouldn't
good
get a
movie, though. I'm not downplaying the movie. It's awesome. Yeah,
fucking Oscar
fucking
Isaac.
Alex Garland, please make more movies, dude. Like this guy wrote Dread. This guy made Annihilation, Ex Machina. Like this guy needs to make more movies. He wrote Sunshine. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but that's a great movie too.
Sunshine. What is Sunshine?
Yeah, look up Sunshine. Um, it's a space movie. I don't want to get into it now because it's kind of not part of the topic, but it's a great movie you should watch. But anyways,
2007.
yeah, this guy. I mean, I don't know why this guy isn't like more mainstream. He's everything he's made is like quality. But anyways, now going on to, or do you have any more honorable mentions?
No, that was it. I had zero
Okay,
after that.
I only have like two. The first one is I wonder if you've seen this one. I remember seeing this one in theaters, and for some reason it always stuck out to me. It's this 2005 movie directed by Wes Craven called Red Eye. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever watched it. R.I.P. to
Yeah,
Wes Craven,
it's
by the way, because he died back in 2016.
very sad. Yeah. Um, this one was a very interesting movie when I saw it because it was marketed as just like a mystery whodunit movie. Because what's the whole plot is this girl, she's going to her grandmother's funeral and she's actually flying back home when she meets this guy who was actually played by Killian Murphy. You know him?
Yeah, Scarecrow. He's butt buddies
Yeah,
with Christopher
Scarecrow.
Nolan.
Yeah, him. I was gonna say Scarecrow. She meets him, and they're sitting next to each other on a plane, and they end up being buddy buddy. Everything's cool, right? But then after a while, she learns that he actually sat next to her for a reason because he has a plan the whole time. His plan is he actually wants to assassinate the Homeland Security main chief dude. Like he's the head of the whole department. But in order to
On the
do that,
plane?
yeah, he needs to do that on a plane. But the reason why is because he actually is able to do that based on some information he has about her father. So he's asking her for information about her dad. But then he pretty much reveals that with this information, they have to kill her dad. I can't really say it because I do want you to watch it one day. It's pretty good. Um, he has to kill her dad in order to get this information to assassinate the head of Homeland Security. So she's pretty much on this plane with this dude who needs this information to kill her father. And if she doesn't give it up, then she's dead. And he slowly starts taking out people on the plane to get to her. And it's kind of like a horror movie on that front on a plane. And it's really interesting because this movie could just be like a simple thriller, but the way that Wes Craven directs it, it's like a slasher, dude. Like complete with like horror movie scores, with like slasher tropes, like everything like that. It's really, really funny, but it's also kind of cool at the same time. So I do recommend it. It's a really good watch.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's another one I would recommend. I saw it in theaters and I remember it throwing me off. But anyways,
Oh, Rachel
okay,
McAdams is in the movie?
yeah.
Hmm.
And
And Brian
apparently it's a
Cox,
remake.
the same fucking guy that plays Stryker. Stryker!
Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear.
Apparently it's a
Yeah,
remake. I didn't know
some
that there was
limited
another
series
movie
or
called
something
Red
like
Eye.
that.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah. But anyways, my other honorable mention here. My only other honorable mention that I have is It Follows. Have you heard of that one or seen it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's
You don't like
okay. It's okay. I think the scariest part of the movie was when that giant ass nigga walked out through the door, and like that was it.
it? You know what? I actually think that the rest of the concept is really creepy. I wouldn't even really call it scary. It's not something that would give me nightmares or I see it giving other people nightmares. But the concept of this kind of haunting that's passed on by sexual
Sex, yeah.
intercourse, and the only way that you can get rid of it is to give it to someone else. I mean, I don't know, something about that, man. It just kind of got me. That was one of the big scares that actually kind of threw me off. The guy, the big dude going through the door. A few other things where if you are seeing certain scenes, if you look very closely in the background, like way in the distance, you can see some dude like walking with like a weird posture in the background. Little things like that, it just threw me off. But I really enjoyed It Follows. I've seen it a couple times since then. I love the '80s like synth score it has, like the almost Halloween John Carpenter score, and all the acting was pretty great. So I recommend It Follows if you haven't seen
You
it.
know what?
If you don't like it, it's understandable.
I don't think I've ever finished this movie.
Which one?
I've, it follows. Like I think I've watched the majority of it, but I don't think I've ever finished it. Because I'm looking up the ending right now, and like what it's describing to me, like the Wikipedia,
You don't remember?
I don't remember it. I'm like, wait a
Hmm.
minute, I don't remember this happening. Like there's a part with a
Well, I mean,
pool or something in it, and I don't remember
yeah,
seeing
that's
that.
like a big part of it. You don't remember that? The
But
pool? It's a
apparently
big
that's
part.
like the end of the movie, and I've never seen it. I need to go back and rewatch it then.
Ooh. Yeah, see if you change. I mean, it is a simple story, but I think it's effective. And with that, I think it concludes our horror movie talk.
You know what?
Uh,
Before you go into that, I'm surprised Halloween did not make the list for you.
well, I love Halloween. I think it's great, but to me, it's not really elevated as everybody brings it up as one of the great horror movies. In my opinion, John Carpenter's The Thing is like much better than his earlier attempts at horror. Halloween's good, but it's kind of campy. Some
It's
parts are not
trash.
really.
They're fucking like
It's
Halloween.
not the best well done movie. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I think it's just a well made slasher. But people like to think that because it's one of the first that it's the best, and I don't really subscribe to that. But I mean, I don't. I'm not going to argue with anyone on that front. But no, I like Halloween as a horror movie. I'm not part of that camp who
But
says it's like a legendary movie because I don't think it is.
but Buster Rhymes, trick or treat, motherfucker.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Trick or
Yeah, and
treat,
then
motherfucker.
he's all burnt. He's him at the end. He's like chicken fried motherfucker.
Trick or treat, fucking. Fucking Buster Rhymes. I can't with that
You really
dude.
not gonna put Halloween on there? I'm surprised. No, man. Come on now. I watch the movies because I think they're
I
fun,
just
but
remember like
I wouldn't
you like when we were younger, man. Halloween was your fucking jam, dude.
I watched them a lot. I don't remember like defending them as quality shit, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I did say that back then. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Anyways, all right. Well, I think it's safe to say that you and me kind of enjoy horror regardless, whether we have our favorites or not. If a horror movie's good, I think it's pretty easy to enjoy. And Halloween's probably a good time to watch it. Do you watch a lot of horror around Halloween, or is it just like
You
throughout the year?
know, I've honestly more throughout the year, but I've been slacking. Like this month, I've been watching a lot of superhero films. I don't know why. Like
Really?
I rewatched The Dark Knight and then I rewatched the Dark Knight Rises, and I think I
Yeah.
started Aquaman, but I didn't finish it, so I'll have to rewatch that. But I actually rewatched Scream 1 through 3 over the last week, and I'm just trying to get some other watchings in later. So
If you ever feel like up for it, me and Selena, once October 1st rolled around, we dedicated this month to watching nothing but horror, and it was pretty fun. I don't know, it just kind of gets you in a mood for it. Like, all we've been watching is just horror movies, and it's kind of cool, but I don't know, something I think is fun. But
oh,
yeah, I mean,
100%.
that's all we got yeah, that's all we got so far. I mean, unless there's anything else you have to say about the horror genre or any of our picks, anything like that.
I will say this: jump scares do not make a movie good. So Hollywood, please stop adding them into movies because when you put jump scares in a movie, it's very tired, it's very old, and I'm sick of seeing it. So just stop, okay? Because I don't understand how Paranormal Activity has made this much money. You know, it's literally jump scare after fucking jump scare. Like jump scares do not make a horror movie good. Like it just doesn't. So go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I kind of feel like jump scares are startling. Startling doesn't really equal fear, but
Like
I mean,
okay, like
to each
I
their
can take one or two in a movie, and like if the plot and everything else is
if it
good,
calls for it,
like
yeah.
if it calls for it, then I'm okay for it. But if like I'm watching the fucking movie and like there's a jump scare thrown at me like every other 10 minutes, I'm gonna get annoyed. Like what are y'all like trying to do? Like are you trying to like just do jump like is this a jump scare fest or are you trying to like scare people? Like I don't understand. I feel like
Yeah.
only teenagers and fucking yeah, probably just teenagers can only watch fucking jump scares. And then I guarantee you, dude, if you show any of the movies that we talked about to a younger audience, they probably would not like it because there's no jump scares in it.
I remember working at Ultrastar, and then when there was like horror movies that came out, the like screenings would always be filled, and they were like always loud as hell. And whenever the movie didn't have that many jump scares, they'd be walking out like, "Man, that was boring. That wasn't even scary." But when a movie came out with nothing but jump scares, it came out like yelling and happy and content. It was really weird.
Oh my
But
god. See, that's my
yeah.
fucking point, dude.
But anyways, with that being said, this was our episode 3, Halloween horror edition of
Spooky
Back to
season.
Formula podcast. Spooky season. Jourdyn, are you happy to be back at the old grind?
Yeah, yeah. I'm ready to get it cracking again on a regular basis. We need to like come up with like an email or something so people could write in. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people would, but I don't know.
We'll come up with something. Maybe if anybody who's listening, if you have any suggestions or you made it this far and you have any things you want to throw at us, we're more than willing to listen. But we might be jumping the gun. We'll see. Anyways, we do plan on being more consistent. Shit is figured out, so look forward to more content soon. And I'll leave some links to get in contact with us in the description below, also in the comments. And do you have any other thoughts, Jourdyn, about anything else before we close this out?
No, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. For those who don't know, it's like fucking 2:57 right now. We've been trying to work on this for a while, so
We're
yeah,
dedicated.
shit we do for you guys. We're dedicated. Think of any other podcasters who do this shit.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
got whole
All
families
right.
and
Well,
babies we got to deal with.
yeah, sucks. You try it. All right. Anyways, thanks for listening in. We'll see you next time.